Thank you, Daniel. The title means nothing, so don't worry about remembering that. We return to a land of industrialized being spelled with a Z, so relinquish your fears. We're back in the land of normalcy. I'm sort of an interstitial human, which is part of why my title is made up. I've been doing research on IC for 5 or so years, but my particular interest comes from affordability, policy, specifically for housing, how that intersects with environmental outcomes and policy. And so the lens of construction innovation is an attempt at connecting a lot of these dots, which means I get to wear a wide variety of hats on any given day. Green button, I assume? Wonderful technology. So the first important distinction is what is Terner Center and Terner Labs. And it's an important distinction, if an annoying one. Terner Center is a research center officially housed within UC Berkeley, and so it's under the university banner, adjacent to the College of Environmental Design with the Urban Planning School. It was founded only 6 or 7 years ago with the specific intent of doing research that is timely and relevant. So it's written for an accessible audience, which is to say not academic journals. So we do self-publishing reports with nice graphic design that are intended to go directly to folks practicing in industry and actively making decisions around policy that impact the spaces we care about. On the flip side, Terner Labs, which is only 3 or 4 years old now, came out as a direct spin-off of our work with Terner Center. We felt the need for more agile programming for anyone who has dealt with university bureaucracy. They can understand why that is an important need. And the specific program that it launched was with the Housing Venture Lab, which is an accelerator program for general housing innovation that we've run really successfully for a few years now. And both of these things are shared brain trust, but important distinctions in exactly what we can do, as I'll talk about now. So the first side of things, and where I officially started a few years ago as a grad student, part-time researcher, was in this industrialized construction space on the Terner Center side. And so I'll only cover one project in some detail, really just because I think it's illustrative of a lot of our mindset towards IC and the value and the unique platform we have to, I think, talk to some of these topics. So this was an affordable housing project built in San Francisco a few years ago. It is for previously unhoused individuals and uses several layers of public subsidy, as much affordable housing does in the US. And there were really 3 complementary interventions that are decidedly systems level that we found useful for doing a case study on. The first one was this project utilized a state policy, state law that was fairly recent that allowed it to go through ministerial approval at the local level. So basically adding certainty and decreasing the timeline for the permitting process. Simultaneously, there was a friendly nonprofit to the project team that provided some upfront flexible financing that allowed the project to move forward, where it otherwise would have been delayed waiting on distinct timelines for local public subsidy. And then third, it utilized modular construction. And the picture shown here also demonstrates that they did overnight installation of many of the modules to reduce traffic impact because it was in a busy downtown. So the project saw 30% time savings, 25% cost savings, which are non-trivial by any means, but the really key finding is that all 3 of these interventions were really crucial for the project to see that sort of outcomes. And so it wasn't just a plug and play of any one or even 2 of these, all 3 were really necessary to see that. And so our whole mindset from this project, but also in our work more broadly, is that we need multi-layered, complicated, intersectional innovations across a variety of spheres for the IC to have any real play and stability in the US. Just a smattering of some other research to hopefully get different people's interest, but also give a sense of the variety of projects we've done in a short period of time. We have one report that I highly recommend that's directly relevant to pretty much everyone's work that does a more granular analysis of some of the hard cost of construction trends in California in the last 10 or so years. That really speaks to the need and demand for IC and what we're hoping to get out of it. I do the thing where I forget to swallow, so sure that won't be the last time. Another project, dipping our toes into the building science sphere because I can't give up the civil engineering life that I once led. specifically looking at distributed heat pump systems to get a sense of the environmental and cost impacts of combining a distributed or decentralized system in a multifamily building compared to a centralized system. That's really in the weeds, but also a fun one. I got to co-author with the help of many others, to be clear. Then looking back at the systems level, this report in particular pulls out some intel from folks working in Southern California, but most of the lessons are extremely translatable to other geographies. The focus was what are the key challenges and opportunities for a different variety of stakeholders, from architects to developers to contractors to builders, the manufacturers themselves, sort of the achievable interventions that they can do to improve the likelihood of success on any given project. So it has a wide range of recommendations, again, formatted specifically to be easy to read through by normal humans. And then lastly, I'll leave off on one that I think is a more recent endeavor for us. So it's a breakdown of the somewhat detailed pro forma math that goes into whether or not a project pencils out. And we released it with an interactive tool that's available on our website, so feel free to tinker around. That walks you through the process and have some levers or on-off switches for some land use policy impacts, some construction cost impacts, to let you see in real time which things have the biggest influence on whether or not a project is financially feasible or likely to be developed. And so all of these things are contributing to our view of IC and also contributed directly to our motivation to lean back on our Terner Labs programming ability and specifically launch what is a new accelerator program called the Builders Lab. And so super original name. It is an accelerator program modeled very much after our success with the Housing Venture Lab. The broad goal is to stabilize and provide some sense of truth and sanity to the world of IC, where I think there are still a lot of overblown claims, but also misunderstandings on all sides of the aisle. And so I'll walk through some of the abstract principles, but first, the key set of challenges that we've identified that are very much familiar to this crowd that we think we are fairly capable of addressing through the Builders Lab programming. The knowledge silos, I don't need to say much more about. They're a problem for everyone. Specifically, I think the testing and prototyping phase for any new company, but also existing companies, general contractors or folks in the IC space specifically, is really expensive and time-consuming and hard to prove out the value of to investors or internally to decision makers. The all-important distinction between innovation and invention, I think the point's been referenced a couple times already, but having a lot of advanced technology doesn't automatically make you innovative or industrialized, certainly not in terms of outcomes, particularly not for sustainability or affordability, which is our interest. And on the flip side, there are many innovations and meaningful improvements you can make to IC, but also the building industry writ large, that don't necessarily require invention or innovation in the technology sphere specifically. And then related to all of that, I'm so glad Duncan went right before and did the thing with the long list of company failures and headlines, because I was considering doing that, and I was like, it's distracting. And so related to many of those really high-profile failures, there's still a specter of distrust and misconceptions from the clients that we're expecting to drive adoption in the IC space. And so dispelling some of those myths and having a sort of trusted steward of neutrality, which we think we are oddly well positioned to do, is really crucial for just building knowledge and trust across the industry. And so how that translates abstractly to our design of the Builders Lab, and then I'll go into actual program details. The three things I'll call out because I love forced metaphors: a microscope, the petri dish, and the macroscope. And so from the first two in particular, I think one thing we pride ourselves on with the Housing Venture Lab, but also how we're thinking about our Builders Lab work, is we have really extensive due diligence on what companies seem the most scalable, have value-aligned leadership, and are understanding the systems level issues in a non-performative way, and promoting innovations that actually have reasonable growth potential. Related to that, as a follow-up, having that petri dish, which I will continue this metaphor as like cultivating a culture of a safe environment for growth for new companies that are still exploring the best strategy to navigate in this extremely complex housing innovation space, I think is another key component that we're aiming for. And then especially utilizing our platform through Terner Center and the extensive network we've built with or built through that work, is reflecting a lot of that education back to the macro sphere to educate policymakers, developers, everyone up and down the value chain about what the most realistic innovations we think are, and have some sort of spotlight for the companies, I think, doing good work in this interstitial space of really addressing systems level issues. So programmatically, what this looks like, phase 1 in particular, which is launching late this spring, so this is a perfect time where I don't have to have answers to everything just yet. But what we do know is that we're going with a cohort model, similar to our housing venture lab, probably 5 or so companies. And the real key here is having a diversity within the cohort. And I mean that across a variety of scales, but means variety of stages are likely to be represented in the cohort, and a variety of business models. So of course we expect some builders to be involved. Hopefully not all 5 will be volumetric builders, because there are a variety of strategies already making progress that we hope to highlight. Some of them might not be doing building at all. We could imagine companies doing software integration that are helping support supply chain management with factory floor logistics, with customer procurement and on-site construction that is solving a really key bottleneck for innovators, but not necessarily having units built in a traditional sense. And then on the flip side, I think having someone doing financial services or product that is really catered to someone doing off-site construction, we could also imagine in this cohort. And the point of that is also not only to really encourage the cross-cohort learning, which has been a really crucial point of success for our housing venture lab, but also recognizing that we don't know what we don't know. There are likely thousands of successful strategies, business models, node connectors that are really crucial in these systems level problems. And despite the nice storytelling of having really nice renderings of fast installs for modular builders, we see there really being value in having a variety of companies that are working at these interplays in between some of the issues we've identified. Less novelly and more traditionally, we'll have an extensive curated coaching and mentorship network, thanks in part to some of our friends at UC Berkeley's Civil Engineering Group, hopefully eventually thanks in part to our friends in Stanford's Civil Engineering Group, looking at you, Martin. But offering both the technical strategy coaching, but also that extended mentorship and of building a strategy for a business model within the housing space across many different geographic scales and financial schemas and a variety of other challenges. I think that's a guidance that especially technology-focused companies can really use in this IC space, and that we seem poised to provide through our network. And then, not to be understated, I think Terner has also proved to be a fairly established platform for hosting the kind of the room where it happens, if I can say that. Getting the right people in the room, be they local, state, regional, or federal government, policymakers, or folks, critical partners and clients in the developer space, or other kind of, again, network nodes that can support companies, but also the sector-wide growth and maturity in the IC space. And so we see ourselves as somewhat a trusted neutral source to gather those folks in the room alongside our cohort companies and the extended IC sector to be able to push the industry forward together. And then the cherry on top is a set of 3 international study tours, very much similar to the one the Australia group in the room is on right now, but to see what a mature IC sector, or in many cases a still maturing IC sector, looks like abroad, and see what relationships or at least models we can take back to the US and replicate. And some other things that I don't have enough time to talk about. The phase 2, which is potentially more exciting, particularly in the space of still recognizing that technology has a meaningful role to play in the IC world, is we hope to anchor a lot of this programming in an actual physical facility in the Bay Area. I also have been told that apparently these photos are cheesy, but they were done with the help of a good friend, actually Daniel's PhD student, Alex, and everyone looks really happy, which I think is the key theme I want to highlight. Because tinkering in a makerspace is extremely fun. So cheesy or not, I love these photos. But the general purpose is to lower the risk that is required for new and existing companies to be able to iteratively prototype products, get rapid feedback on actual testing, so fireproofing, thermal efficiency, the certs that you need to be eligible to be constructed in most US jurisdictions, having that co-located so you have dramatically shorten the feedback loop of a company working on a new product. And again, that could be a brand new company that is not well capitalized, or an existing company that just doesn't have the space in their factory or other ability to do those things all at once. And a key distinction there too is it's not just prototype development in having an end physical product and it being able to withstand fire for X amount of hours. A key part of it is being able to prototype the assembly of that product. And so the plan is to outfit the facility with enough off-the-shelf kind of fabrication equipment to be dangerous. So that's really poor phrasing now that I think about it. To be exploratory is what I should say. But having the ability to reconfigure the space of, say, a CNC machine, an auto welder, drill press, both manually and automated tools that are readily available to a company looking to scale after our program, and being able to configure those to get a better sense of exactly how the assembly can or should work, the takt time of different batch assembly processes, and the sort of waste that's accompanied with each of these. Currently, most companies are forced to ask for $50 million raises to own their own factory to have any good tangible sense of those factors, and the hope is for this facility to be able to support the physical assembly prototyping process with enough knowledge that they can go to investors and be searching for physical facilities if they are asset heavy, with a much better understanding of exactly what they're making and how they're making it, because industrialized construction is a process as much as it is a product. So acknowledging there are still open questions, most of these we expect to have answers by the time we launch, but also in the spirit of continuous improvement, I expect we'll learn a lot as we go as well, and we've built that into the process and program design for ourselves. The couple I'll mention just for the sake of time. Defining metrics for success is hard in any environment, but particularly because we're taking the approach and the advantage of having a diverse cohort where not everyone is building a physical product. Having some unified, convenient metric like units built during or after our program doesn't quite work. And so we're still figuring out the exact mechanics of, are there different lanes of metrics that are relevant to certain companies? But that's an open question. Happy to take feedback on or offline about things like that. And then strategic partnerships is the other one I'll call out. I think everyone deals with those, whether they're for or a nonprofit, university partner, or anyone else. But making sure strategic partnerships are adding value rather than bloat, because especially something as ambitious as this has a risk of feature creep. And we want to make sure we're still delivering on the tangible, direct value that we think is most impactful. So sign up for our newsletter, look for our launch in late spring, and if it seems relevant to you, please apply. Thank you.